Hey there, my friend. How are you feeling today? Let me start this conversation by asking, have you ever had thoughts pop into your mind that feel completely out of your control? Thoughts so bizarre or disturbing that you almost wonder, what's wrong with me? If yes, then you're not alone. We've all had them. Those intrusive thoughts, thoughts that feel out of place, unwanted, and make us second-guess ourselves. But here's the truth. Intrusive thoughts are not a reflection of who you are. I'm here to tell you that it's okay to have these thoughts sometimes. You're not crazy, you're not broken, and most importantly, you are not alone. Today, we're going to talk about intrusive thoughts, why they happen, and how to deal with them. By the end of this, I hope you'll feel more at peace with your mind. 1. What are intrusive thoughts? Let's start with the basics. What exactly are intrusive thoughts? Intrusive thoughts are those thoughts that pop into your head unexpectedly and often without any reason. They're usually incongruent with your values, beliefs, or personality. And they can be totally bizarre, like imagining doing something violent, inappropriate, or completely out of character. The thing is, these thoughts don't define who you are. They're just thoughts. And they happen to everyone, even the calmest, most put-together people. In fact, it's not unusual to have thoughts like, what if I hurt someone I love? What if I act on this impulse even though I don't want to? What if I fail miserably in life? When these thoughts arise, it can make us feel anxious, ashamed, or even disgusted. But they don't mean we'll act on them or that they're true. They're simply random ideas from a brain that's constantly processing information. 2. Why do we have intrusive thoughts? Now, let's dig deeper into why we experience these thoughts. 1. The nature of the brain. The brain is constantly active. It's constantly processing, even when we don't realize it. Sometimes, the brain throws out random ideas, some logical, some not. Some we act on, and some we discard. Intrusive thoughts are like these random ideas that get stuck. They're like the brain saying, hey, check this out. And while some of these thoughts can seem pretty disturbing, they don't reflect our intentions or desires. 2. The fear of losing control. Some of us may have a heightened fear of losing control. This fear can trigger thoughts about doing things that we would never actually do. It's your brain's way of testing boundaries, even though you don't need to worry about it. In fact, the fear of having such thoughts often makes them feel more intense and uncomfortable. 3. Cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when two conflicting ideas are at odds in our minds. For example, you might strongly believe in kindness, yet suddenly have a thought about harming someone. The discomfort comes from the mismatch between the thought and your values. But remember, just because you have a thought doesn't mean it's in line with who you are. 4. Mental fatigue or stress. If you've been feeling stressed, anxious, or mentally exhausted, your brain may start processing even more random thoughts. It's like your mind becomes cluttered, and these intrusive thoughts start to get through the cracks. 5. Examples of intrusive thoughts and why they don't make us bad. Before we dive deeper, I want to ask, have you ever experienced an odd thought that felt completely out of character? Maybe you even thought to yourself, wow, how could I even think something like that? Does that make me a bad person? If yes, take a deep breath and remind yourself, you're not bad, and you're definitely not alone. Here are a few common examples of intrusive thoughts that many people experience. 1. Violent thoughts. You're cooking, holding a knife, and suddenly think, what if I hurt someone? You're driving, and for a split second, you think, what if I swerved into oncoming traffic? 2. Sexual thoughts. A disturbing or inappropriate sexual thought enters your mind out of nowhere, leaving you feeling gross or ashamed. 3. Harmful thoughts toward yourself. You're standing near a ledge and suddenly think, what if I jumped? You're walking on the street and a fleeting thought crosses your mind. What if I stepped into traffic? 4. Religious or spiritual thoughts. While praying, you might suddenly think something blasphemous. You might feel a sense of guilt because of thoughts that contradict your religious values. 5. Thoughts about loved ones. You're holding your baby and suddenly think, what if I drop them? You're spending time with a loved one, and suddenly a thought crosses your mind. What if I cheat on them? If any of these examples sound familiar, remember, you're not the only one. 6. Why do intrusive thoughts feel so disturbing? So, why does an occasional intrusive thought feel so much worse for some of us? Why do some people brush it off, while others feel it's so overwhelming? Here's what we know. It's not the thought itself that makes it disturbing, but our reaction to it. 1. Giving it more meaning. When we experience an intrusive thought, many of us immediately think, what does this mean about me? We start assigning meaning to the thought, and that's where the anxiety kicks in. But remember, thoughts don't define us. 2. Trying too hard to fight it. The more we try to force the thought out of our heads, the more it sticks. It's like trying to push away a balloon underwater. The harder you push, the more it pops back up. Trying to suppress intrusive thoughts only makes them feel more intense. Instead, it's about learning to accept them without judgment. 3. Guilt and fear amplify the thought. If you're someone who's naturally empathetic or moral, intrusive thoughts may feel even more disturbing because you fear being a bad person. But just because you have a disturbing thought doesn't mean it's a reflection of your character. In fact, the fact that you're disturbed by it shows you're likely a very kind person. 4. Emotional or mental state. If you're under stress or emotional strain, your brain may become more susceptible to intrusive thoughts. It's not because you're a bad person, but because your mind is overloaded with emotions. 5. Intrusive thoughts in psychological conditions, OCD, PTSD, anxiety. Sometimes, intrusive thoughts are more than just a passing annoyance. They can be part of psychological conditions like OCD, PTSD, and anxiety. 1. OCD, obsessive-compulsive disorder. People with OCD often experience obsessive thoughts that trigger compulsive behaviors. The intrusive thoughts can be repetitive, persistent, and cause a lot of anxiety. For example, someone might think, if I don't touch this door handle exactly 5 times, something bad will happen. And so, they keep touching it, trying to neutralize the anxiety caused by the thought. 2. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. For someone who's experienced trauma, intrusive thoughts might involve flashbacks or images related to the traumatic event. The brain might replay vivid memories of the traumatic event, causing emotional distress. It's important to recognize that these thoughts don't reflect your current reality. They are simply your brain's way of processing past trauma. 3. Anxiety disorders. People with anxiety disorders are prone to excessive worrying. Intrusive thoughts often appear in the form of, what if I fail? What if I embarrass myself? What if something bad happens to my loved ones? Anxiety makes everything feel like a worst-case scenario. And those thoughts can be hard to escape. 6. How to cope with intrusive thoughts. Now that we understand more about intrusive thoughts, let's talk about how to deal with them. You may not be able to completely stop them, but you can learn to manage them. 1. Acknowledge their presence. When the thought arises, rather than fighting it, acknowledge it. Okay, that's an interesting thought, but I don't need to act on it. This takes away its power. 2. Don't attach meaning to it. Just because you think something doesn't mean it's true or a reflection of your desires. Thoughts are not facts. 3. Avoid compulsive behaviors. If you're feeling an urge to act out in response to an intrusive thought, like checking or repeating a behavior, try to hold off. Reinforcing the thought with actions only makes it feel more important. 4. Notice patterns in your anxiety. If you notice that certain emotions, like stress or fatigue, make the thoughts worse, try to take a break and recharge. Self-care can help reduce the frequency of intrusive thoughts. 5. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is a great tool to help you stay present and focused on the here and now. Instead of trying to push thoughts away, allow them to be there without reacting to them. 6. Seek professional help. If intrusive thoughts are overwhelming, don't hesitate to seek professional help. Therapists or counselors can offer support and techniques to help manage these thoughts. Hey, you made it to the end. Remember, you are not your thoughts. You are bigger, stronger, and more capable than any fleeting idea that crosses your mind. Intrusive thoughts are a part of being human, but they don't define you. They don't make you a bad person or suggest something about your character. They're just random thoughts that your brain produces. And the more you accept them without judgment, the less power they have over you. You've made it through this conversation, and that alone shows how resilient and brave you are. I really want you to remember that taking the time to understand your mind and these thoughts is a huge step towards self-compassion and peace. You don't have to figure it all out immediately. It's okay to take things one day at a time. You're doing just fine. If this conversation has helped, or if you think someone else might benefit from it, feel free to share. You never know, your simple gesture could make someone else feel less alone in their struggles. Before we wrap up, I just want to include a quick but important disclaimer. I am not a licensed therapist, psychologist, or mental health professional. This content is meant to provide general information and support, not professional advice. If you feel overwhelmed by intrusive thoughts, or if they're severely affecting your daily life, I highly encourage you to reach out to a professional for guidance and support. It's incredibly brave to ask for help when you need it. You deserve the best care and support possible, so don't hesitate to seek professional assistance. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I truly hope this has brought some comfort and insight. Until next time, remember, you're not your thoughts, and you're doing amazing.